Hello everyone, week 3 in our somatic meditation explorations. This week is all about posture and the emotional releases that come with the lumbar, the scapula, our shoulder blade, and the fibula. And so trying to locate these areas in your body from the little slides that I referred to earlier in the session. If you start with your scapula, so we've mapped in an earlier session the very tip of the acromion, and so if you run your hand down below your armpit, you will feel this sort of muscly mass under your armpit, and right behind that will be your scapula, and you can kind of feel the tip of it at the very bottom part of your muscly mass. So this would be the tip of your scapula, and you can do that on both sides just to give your body a little bit more sensory input on where it is that we are going to be focusing on. In order to reference the lumbar spine, so the low back area is often the holding pattern for a lot of repressed anger. And anger is something that we're maybe as 5-year-olds allowed to have good old hissy fits and let those emotions out. But generally in our society, we're very discouraged from living out our anger. And as I kind of said in one of the earlier weekly blurbs, learning how to titrate extreme emotions and letting out a little bit at a time is so essential to becoming a whole human, to really feel things and allowing all emotions to be welcome. Not that that path is always easy when you're going through the emotional roller coaster of unearthing all of the unfelt things that you at one point in your life weren't ready for. But the lumbar is, so many of us have low back issues, and it is good to kind of tune into that and going, okay, I'm maybe ready to feel what is being going on in there. So posturally, a lot of us are holding our low back in a way where we are kind of tilting our buttocks backwards and just kind of compensating. That would be like a sympathetic pattern of holding your low back in a state of chronic activation. And so slowly transitioning to a parasympathetic way of posture will feel completely different in your body. And so that is a really wonderful and welcome thing. To help map the lumbar spine, we've got some socks that I'm just using, some rolled up socks that I'm going to put on my low back. Maybe make sure they're not too thick, just whatever you're comfortable, so it's not super uncomfortable, because this should be a very relaxing practice, not one where you're feeling irritated or uncomfortable. And then the next area of focus will be the fibula, or the outer ankle bone. And so the outer ankle has a little knobbly bit here and runs all the way the outside of your shin, and in a parasympathetic state of your nervous system, the fibula will be more towards the outside of your leg. If you're in a chronically sympathetic activation part of your nervous system, your fibula might be more tilted towards behind the knee, and then it will be harder to bend your knees. And your arms, which will be next week's session, and your lower legs are all boundary related areas of your body. So being aware that there's maybe some things that come up that haven't been addressed before, and and that is a good thing. So we'll get started. If you want to lay down on your mat, as usual, with your feet a little bit hip width apart, and you can just put those socks on either side of your low back, on your lumbar spine, just above the sacrum being that giant knobbly bone at the back of your pelvis, and just kind of laying down with your hands up and your feet a little bit further than hip width apart, and taking mental inventory of your back body resting against the ground, feeling those socks on either side of your lumbar spine, and taking a deep breath into your back body, feeling your scapulas touching the ground. And then whichever side your brain has a preference for, we'll be starting on that side. And starting with your foot on the ground, for me today that would be the left-hand side. How is your foot resting on the ground? And can you feel into or sense into the area of your outer ankle bone or your fibula, running your awareness up towards the knee and back down again on that side? Can you feel any of your toes gripping on that side? Does the arch of your foot feel drawn up in towards the body? Can you sense into that outer ankle bone on this side and run your awareness up the fibula to the outer side of your kneecap and back down again towards your ankle bone? And as you hold your awareness on the fibula and that outside part of your ankle bone, does anything change? Taking your awareness from your outer ankle bone up the fibula towards the outside of your kneecap, and then up towards your lumbar spine. Can you trace the outside of the sock that is touching the back of your spine or the back of your low back? Tracing an outline around the outside of the sock on your back in one direction, and then the opposite direction. And as you hold your awareness on your lumbar spine and your outer ankle bone, does anything change? Is there any difference in how your foot is resting on the ground? Has your breath changed? Is there more pressure on one side of your lumbar spine than on the other? And as you hold your awareness and your lumbar spine on that side, and your outer ankle bone. Does anything change? Moving up towards your shoulder blade resting on the ground. Can you, in your mind's eye, trace an outline of your shoulder blade touching the ground? Or which parts of your back body are making ground contact with the shoulder blade? Does your shoulder blade feel more drawn up towards your ears? Does it feel more tilted towards the outside of your arm? Or closer towards your rib cage? And as you hold your awareness on your shoulder blade resting on that ground, does anything change? Oscillating between the tip of your scapula or the tip of your shoulder blade and your lumbar spine and your ankle bone. Can you trace a line from your ankle bone to your lumbar and up to your shoulder blade and back down again? How is your back body resting on the ground now that you've been focusing on this side in comparison to the opposite side? Does this side feel heavier on the ground, the other one lighter? Switching to the opposite side, starting with your foot on the ground. Are your toes gripping? And can you sense into your outer ankle bone and the fibula on this side, moving up towards your knee to the outside of your kneecap and back down again towards your ankle bone? Does this ankle bone feel different than the other side? Are you holding more sensory awareness on one side than the other? And as you hold your awareness on your ankle bone and the outside of your knee, on that side, the tip of the fibula and the ankle bone, does anything change? Moving up to the lumbar on this side, tracing the outline of the sock that is resting against your back body. In your mind's eye, tracing a line in one direction, and then changing directions and tracing a line the other way. Does this part of your back rest differently on the ground than on the opposite side? Do you have more sensory information on this side in comparison to the other? Does the lower part of your lumbar or the higher part of your lumbar feel like it has more pressure on the sock than the opposite side? And as you hold your awareness on that area of your body, does anything change? Oscillating between your lumbar and the outside ankle bone on this side. Running a line up towards the lumbar and through the outer part of your knee, running down the fibula towards the outside ankle bone and back up again. Is your foot resting differently on the ground than at the beginning of the sensing practice? How is your pelvis resting on the ground? From one side to the other? And as you hold your awareness on your lumbar spine and the outer ankle bone and the fibula, does anything change? Moving up towards the shoulder blade in this area. Can you feel the areas of your shoulder blade that are touching the ground? Does this shoulder blade rest differently on the ground than the other side? Does your shoulder blade feel more tilted towards the outside of your body or more towards the rib cage? Does your shoulder blade feel more drawn up towards your ears, or is it dropping more down towards the hips? And as you hold your awareness on your shoulder blade and the back body on that side, does anything change? How is your breath now in comparison to the beginning of the session? When you compare right and left sides of your body, is there a difference? Does one side feel heavier, the other one lighter? Raising both arms up towards the ceiling now and extending your fingers out towards the outside of your body and curling them back in towards the rib cage, focusing on your scapula or your shoulder blade on the side that you started to focus on. Can you feel your shoulder blade moving in towards the body when you're bringing your fingers in towards the breastbone? And can you feel your rib cage expanding out as you're bringing your arms out towards the side? Does your breath change as you're carrying out this movement? Can you initiate the movement from your shoulder blade rather than from your hands or the tip of your fingers? Can you feel this movement on your lumbar spine? Can you feel the lower part of your back tilting and opening outwards, and more pressure on the outside of the socks as you're bringing your arms outwards? Moving to the opposite side of the shoulder blade. Can you feel your rib cage expanding and contracting? Can you feel your shoulder blade moving in and out of the body? Can you feel the ground contact of your shoulder changing as you're bringing your hands out towards the outside of your body? And can you feel your shoulder blade curling back in as you're bringing the tips of your fingers in towards the breastbone? Moving down your awareness to your lumbar. Can you feel the pressure change as you bring your fingers in towards the breastbone and out towards the side of your body? Is there a shift in how your back body is resting on the ground? As you move your arms in and out, can you initiate the movement on the side from your shoulder blade rather than your fingers? Can you feel your rib cage expanding and contracting, arching and curling as you're carrying out this movement? And resting both of your arms back on the ground. Taking mental inventory of right and left sides. Does your low back rest differently on the little cushy socks than they did at the beginning of the session? Is there larger parts of your shoulder blade resting on the ground? Moving your awareness down to the ankle on the side that you started the session on. Letting both of your knees fall out towards the side and bringing them back in. Can you feel your fibula and your ankle bone moving in synchronicity? Or is your knee ahead of the movement, or your ankle bone ahead of the movement? Repeating, bringing your knees, letting your knees fall towards the outside of your body and bringing them back in. Focusing on your ankle bone on that side. Can you feel your lumbar and the parts of the sock resting on the ground on that side? Can you feel the pressure of the sock more towards the outside when your knees are dropped towards the ground? And can you feel a weight shift on your lumbar When you bring your knees back in, does your ankle bone feel differently on one side than the other? Moving your awareness to the opposite side of your body, continuing letting your knees drop to the outside of your body and bringing them back in. Running your awareness from your outer ankle bone up the fibula to the outside of your knee. Letting your knee drop out towards the side, bringing it back in. Feeling your ankle bone on that side. Sensing into your lumbar and the sock, resting on your back body. Feeling the pressure change as your knees dropping towards the outside and coming back in. Are you holding your breath? Do you feel any trembling in your pelvis or in your leg muscles as you're dropping your knees towards the outside and bringing them back in? Can you hold both of your ankle bones in your awareness as you're dropping your knees to the outside? Resting your feet on the ground. Taking inventory of both sides of your body. Comparing it to the beginning of the session. Is your back body resting differently on these socks and the lumbar spine? Is there a broader part of your shoulder blade touching the ground? Are the arch of your feet resting differently? Are your toes more relaxed? And when you're ready, rolling over to one side, taking the socks out from behind you. And just take your time getting up. Stay there as long as you need to, would like to. Setting an intention for the practice.